here, there's been a lot of rumors about what this bill does and what it doesn't do. Can you just kind of go through and tell us what type of knives are now legal to carry? And I mean, I heard something, brass knuckles might have been in the bill at one time or something. But do you just kind of clear that up for us? Tell us exactly what it does and what length of blade, switchblade, or whatever, and then how, that'll help Mike clear this thing up. Thank you.
The bill as amended and before the body does the amendment, if this amendment goes on, strips all language from the original bill and any previous amendments, simply states that knives are placed into our current firearm preemption statute. It does not deal with methods of opening for knives. It does not deal with blade lengths. It does not do anything. It does not change anything that's currently in the law in relation to prohibitions on knives that's currently in the code.
Representative Stewart.
I was pleased to hear Chairman Cassidy's change of heart on local control. I think we're all evolving on that issue, because I remember last year or 2 years ago when Representative Cassidy, I thought what was sauce for the goose was sauce for the gander, but I'll move forward.
Please.
My question is, I'm confused because I'm reading this bill and it says in our summary that what we're doing is we're eliminating local control for the following things. We are removing the provision that says it's a Class A misdemeanor to knowingly sell a switchblade knife to a minor. We're removing blade length provisions. And the way I read our summary is we are making it impossible for local governments to regulate these things that they've regulated for many years. What am I missing? Are we not doing what is said in the summary?
Representative Dennis.
I don't think so. I don't know if you're the amendment that's going on the bill is a very short amendment. It simply adds knives to our current preemption statute. Doesn't deal with any types of knives, doesn't specifically name any type of knife or any blade length of a knife, anything like that.
But it would say that a local government, I mean, right now we have prohibitions against selling switchblade knives to minors and other similar prohibitions. And what we're saying here at least is that a local government cannot impose those prohibitions. After we pass this amendment and then the bill, if it passes, we're saying X county, if your county government does not want people to sell switchblades to minors, you can't do that anymore. Isn't that what we're doing?
State law currently prohibits that, and we're not changing it in any way.
Well, we are changing it in the sense we're saying that local governments now have no control over these issues, right?
Local governments cannot make any regulations contrary to the state law in relation to the transportation, possession, storage of knives.
Thank you.
Representative Pody.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Yes, sir.
You know, I am usually all about local control, and I'm going to support local control wherever I can. However, this bill, if I go to some county or some city, and if there's a higher tax or if there's something like that, I would make that decision before I would buy or whatever. But if I travel the state, I don't want to be in violation just because I carry a knife from one city or one county to another. I think any kind of bill that says we've got the expectation to be able to go from one city or one county without violating the law would be a good bill. So I think this would supersede where local control would happen. Citizens need to be able to travel within our state without breaking a law just because they crossed the state line. So I support your bill. Thank you very much.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Yes, sir.
Does the definition for school properties include daycares and preschool?
There is
two different things, daycares and or preschools?
There is no definition of school properties in the bill as amended. Schools are not touched in any way. And I don't know, I can't speak specifically about what may be in a separate section of the code. This bill doesn't deal with schools at all.
Well, if there's a local government that wants to prohibit the carrying of knives to a daycare or a pre-K, would this bill prohibit it or no change, or what's the impact?
No, the local school board would still have control over what goes on their properties, on the school property.
What about daycares? They aren't governed by the school board.
Daycare would have control over what goes on at that daycare.
So if a daycare prohibits the carrying of weapons and defines knives of any length to be one such weapon, then they still have that ability.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Todd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sponsor Yield.
Yes, sir.
I think years ago we have passed bills that have statewide application where the locals didn't control due to the fact that you could have different ordinances in different municipalities in the state or different counties in the state. One in particular was the restaurant carry bill. We did pass it statewide where the locals could not override the state law. That was done about, 4 years ago, I believe. So it has been done in the past with regards to these issues. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Yes, sir.
Generally, when the local governments make a particular item against an ordinance, what is the maximum penalty, or what sort of penalties can be incurred?
Municipal ordinance is only punishable by up to a $50 fine with no ability of incarceration.
So this bill would not preclude local governments from arresting someone with a knife they deem to be against their ordinance because they couldn't do it anyway.
True.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that, that any law that would allow for a person to be arrested for a crime, for a prohibited item, an illegal substance, knife, or anything else, has to be done by this body. It cannot be done by local government. The only thing they can do is institute a fine up to $50 for that particular offense or prohibition. Thank you.
Representative McCormick.
Previous question on the amendment.
Previous question has been called for on the amendment. Is there objection? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 2 indicate by saying aye. Those opposed say no. You adopt. Next amendment.
No further amendments, Madam Speaker.
Representative Dennis, you're recognized.
Renew my motion.
Representative Dennis renews his motion. Discussion on the bill. Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And this will piggyback on to now that the amendment is on the bill. As I understand it, and let me preface this by saying I can say I'm a supporter of local government and local control, and I've been fairly consistent in that. Please explain to me, we have bills where locals opt their counties out. Then we have bills where locals cannot opt their counties out. Would you explain to me the difference and the reason why some counties sometimes you can opt counties out of a bill and sometimes you can't?
There are certain constitutional criteria about being able, most laws of general applicability have to apply across the state, statewide. And there are some limited situations where the courts have allowed counties to opt out by population, not by name, but that wouldn't really be applicable in this case. It wouldn't be constitutional to try to opt a county out on something like this, and particularly for criminal statutes. Criminal statutes have to be uniform across the state. You can't have a crime in a certain county.
That's what I was getting at. For it to be a crime in the state of Tennessee, it has to be a crime statewide. Therefore, you couldn't say locals could adopt an ordinance that it's not a crime, correct?
True.
Thank you.
Representative Towns, did you seek recognition on the bill?
No, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Representative Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Yes, sir.
Could you just help walk us through what's going to happen between your bill as amended and the Senate bill? The Senate bill they passed amendment number 1, which simply takes out section 5, leaves in a whole series of provisions relating to clubs, firearms, switchblades, brass knuckles, etc. So in the Senate bill, those are still in. So where are we going with this bill? Where do you anticipate us ending up in terms of the regulation of switchblades, clubs, firearms, etc., once all is said and done on this bill?
My understanding from the Senate sponsors, he intends to substitute and conform to our version of the bill that we're passing here today.
So your assumption is that the entire Senate bill as it stands today, regulating, essentially changing our regulation, and there's been plenty of press on this about proposing to change our regulation of switchblades, clubs, and weapons and so forth, will not be adopted, and instead we're going to simply adopt a preemption amendment that otherwise leaves state law with regard to switchblades, clubs, firearms, etc., intact as it stands today?
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sponsor yield?
Yes, sir.
Just some clarification. I'm listening, but I can't hear everything that's said back here. If this bill passes, will that allow the manufacturing and selling of switchblade knives?
No.
No. So you won't be able. It's basically just knives with a blade longer than 4 inches.
The bill doesn't change current law in any way in relation to blade length or type of openings, prohibitions that are already in the code. It doesn't change those in any way.
Okay,
if it's illegal to carry now, it will be illegal to carry after the passage of this bill.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. What exactly does the bill do? I thought, it allowed switchblades, and I thought it allowed, I know we already have provisions for hunters and that can carry longer knives and own longer knives, but just if it doesn't do those things, please explain to me and exactly what it does, sir. Thank you so much.
Sure. The bill as amended simply adds knives to our current preemption statute on firearms, such that local governments would not be able to restrict the transportation, storage, or carrying of weapons, of knives, in the same way that they can't do that in regards to guns.
Representative Fitzhugh. Pass. Anyone else seeking recognition? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was sitting now listening. Sponsor yield.
Yes, sir.
I think maybe I got it now. So what you're doing is you're just simply saying that just as you can have a permit to carry a firearm, you got the same right to carry a knife as long as it is within what the law requires. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so, yes. As long as anything that's legal to carry under state law, you can carry in the state, anywhere in the state.
Okay. You're not dealing with the length of a blade or the kind of a knife or anything like that. It's just that if I've got my pocket knife and if I'm searched by the law, if it's within the ramifications of what the law says, I don't have to have a written permit, but I'm within the law. Is that it?
As long as you're within state law, you're fine.
Okay. I guess the only question I've got is, do that particular law enforcement officer know what that is, or would he have to run some kind of check or whatever?
I think law enforcement is generally aware of what is currently legal in regard to carrying knives and what is not legal as far as the state law is concerned. So I think they'll know if it's legal to carry your knife or not.
Okay. What about the Sheriff's Association? Did they ever get comfortable with this?
Yes. The testimony in the Finance Committee, there was testimony from the Representative Sheriff's Association that said the bill as amended is fine.
Thank you for your comments.
Representative Womack.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With the sponsor yield?
Yes, sir.
So we vote for this today. Switchblades are still illegal.
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Faison.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With the sponsor yield?
Yes, sir.
Representative, this legislation is not as cutting edge as they're trying to make it. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
So I just want to make sure I understand. What we're doing is giving an expectation to 6.5 million Tennesseans that regardless of where you go in the state, we have a uniform law all across this state, and you don't have to worry about any place having something stronger standard than the county you live in. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Is there objection to the question? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senate Bill 1015 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Ayes 77, nays 18.
Senate Bill 1015, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. Motion to reconsider is tabled.